Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, yes, we will talk about that, which you have seen, the different movements now. You know, we have CNM now. We also have NIM. Whichever other M comes up, we'll let you know. But now we'll turn attention to what you may have seen if you saw our paper review segment, where the reporter that the courts are upholding Senate's power of confirmation. So we'll get interpretation from a lawyer and the lawmaker. But first, with the lawyer, we've got Mr. Robert Amukwere, who joins us here. He's a legal practitioner. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Now, this matter, it's, yeah, I can say it's tricky, because we're speaking to a lot of lawyers. Some of them are surprised. Some thought, wait a minute, how did this happen? Was this supposed to have happened at that time? But you've read the judgments from Justice Soho, as it were. What were your impressions? Is the matter settled?
Well, the first impression that came to my mind was that clearly the judgment didn't settle the matter, because I think what can be seen as a fundamental finding by the court is that the plaintiff did not possess the capacity or the competence to maintain the action. So basically the court found that he had no local standing to have filed that action. Although the court did proceed to evaluate the merit of his case and the merit of the arguments that he canvassed, but at the end of the day, the court struck out. The case was struck out. That was the final decision of the court. So really, it appears that on a very calm reading of the ruling, what one can discern basically is that the court just expressed an opinion that, as it is now, really doesn't have any legal force.
Okay, now let me take that up. If the court expresses an opinion, yes, because lawyers will always tell you, yeah, you can hold your opinion, that's your opinion as a lawyer, unless the court so pronounces, yes, then you can take that seriously. Yes. But expressing an opinion, can that be used interchangeably with the court that delivered the judgment, or can it be interpreted as a judgment upon which you can appeal?
Well, certainly it is a judgment. There is no question about that. But the question really is, what is the nature of the judgment that the court handed down? You see, once the court finds that the plaintiff, that is the initiator of the action, has no local standing, has no interest sufficient enough to sustain the case or to entitle him to, so to speak, approach the court, it means that the court itself has no jurisdiction to pronounce on the merits of the case.
Even though they did pronounce?
Even though the court did pronounce. Because generally there is a rule of practice that unless the court is the final court, like the Supreme Court of Nigeria, if a preliminary issue will terminate the case without a hearing on the merits, it behoves on that court that is not a final court to still express his opinion. Because a higher court may disagree with that court and say, well, this person has the court standing. So it's not, in order that the case doesn't go up and come down again for the merits to be heard, it is always desirable that even though the court is of the view that, well, you have no local standing, which means by necessary implication, I have no jurisdiction. But nonetheless, I have to express an opinion on the merits. Okay. In the event that if you go on appeal and the appellate court disagrees with my view that you have no local standing, at least my views on the merits of the case has been expressed. But really the effective order, made by the Honorable Justice Soho is that this case is struck out. And when the case is struck out, there is nothing there that is enforceable.
Oh, sorry. Well, just to clarify, yes. So the case is struck out, then that means what we have there, that the court upholds the Senate's power of confirmation, doesn't stand?
Well, that is the interpretation people argue. That's why I said the court has expressed its opinion on the merit of the case, notwithstanding the very pivotal finding it made that, one, the plaintiff does not have the capacity or the competence to maintain. So
he doesn't have a local standing.
He doesn't have the
But
local
as a
standing.
Citizen of the country, yes, and he's a lawyer,
yes,
he doesn't have a right to...
Well, that is the decision of the court. Whether he likes it, if he's satisfied with that decision, of course he has a right to appeal. to the Court of Appeal to challenge the finding of the court that he has no locus standi. But for now, so far as that case goes, that is the decision that is binding in that case.
Is that decision strong enough to, well, as they will say, to be taken to the bank?
On the issue of the locus standi? Well, I really do not know.
No, not the locus. On the issue of the substance of the matter, the prayers.
Well, the premise upon which I have tried to articulate my thought is that since the court struck out the case, what is there to enforce? Because when you say this case is struck out, it's already bereft of legal content. So what can be enforced? What can be used in it? All you have is just that the court has expressed its view that so far as the interpretation of Section 2(3) goes, the power of the president to appoint the chairman of EFCC is subject to Senate confirmation. So that is the view of the court.
At this point, let's look at the two times that Magu was represented for confirmation to the Senate. He was in that capacity at that time to be confirmed, not appointed by the president, not yet appointed by the president, but forwarded by the president for confirmation by the Senate.
Yes.
Would you say that at that point, the Senate had got the full powers vested on them by the Constitution to confirm him first, since he's not yet appointed?
Well, I will approach this thing from the point of view that, the office of the chairman of the EFCC is not a creation of the Constitution. You need to bear this in mind. EFCC as a commission is a statutory creation, is a body that was brought into being by an act of the National Assembly. So that very act of the National Assembly, in creating the office of the EFCC, had also created conditions for the appointment of the chairman of the EFCC. And that condition is that he will be appointed by the president, subject to the confirmation of the Senate. So to answer your question, the Senate has statutory powers, to confirm the acting, the chairman of the. It's not a constitutional issue in terms of the Constitution created this office. No, the Constitution didn't create. The EFCC is not a body known to the Constitution. It's a body created by an act of the National Assembly. That is why it is really very important to bear in mind that if an act of the National Assembly creates a body, that body cannot exist outside the terms of that act itself, because it owes its existence to that act of the National Assembly. So if the instrument to which you owe existence to says this office that I have created can only be occupied by a person who is confirmed by the Senate, frankly, you cannot say you want to hold on to that office and then you dissociate yourself with the conditions attached by the self-same statute that creates the office. So this condition, I will not accept it.
So in layman's terms,
yes,
the acting EFCC chairman is there, having gone to the Senate twice and rejected, he's there illegally.
As far as I'm concerned, he's clearly there in defiance of the provisions of the EFCC Act. I mean, that is, nobody, even himself cannot say he's there in compliance with the provisions of the Act. That Act created his office. You need to bear that. That Act created his office. It's not the president that created that office. Okay. The Act created that office. So for him to occupy that office, he must submit himself to the provisions of that Act. Right now, he hasn't done that.
That's part of what is in contention in the court. I think they say there are about, 12 or 19 cases in court, and I think they say that at the moment, there's a request that the cases be consolidated. Judgments will be delivered in March, and so maybe when that is done, so that there will not be conflicting judgments.
Yes.
So when this came up, that's why some lawyers were wondering whether or not they thought it was fake news.
Okay.
They were a little confused.
I was taken aback myself by the suddenness of the...
But doesn't this opinion of the court a judgment, doesn't it cause some more confusion? Or do we say, well, yeah, he may have dealt with the substance of the matter, but should he have, since he said the plaintiff had no locus?
Well, I think, like I said, he was obliged, following series of decisions of the Supreme Court, that not being the final court. So if you hold a view that, well, this person has no locus standi, or this case, for some reason, ought to be struck out, you are still, it's a desirable practice that express your view on the merits. In the event that an appellate court may disagree with you. Because, for example, if the court does not express its view on the merits, the case goes on appeal, and it's okay, it has no constant. It means you have to come back to that same court and resolve that issue on the merits.
Well, even though the judgment was delivered on the date there is 15th of January, but one of the persons who made the press know about this, let's toss to them now to hear. I'm sure he's maybe happy about this one. Mark?